Paul Kohler and then Robbie Moore.
Thank you, Home Secretary. I want to press you on the accommodation contracts. They're not fit for purpose. No matter how well you manage them, they will make obscene profits for the providers. The cost-plus contracts giving providers an incentive to keep people in hotels. It's 8 times more profitable to put an asylum seeker in a hotel. Why will the Home Office not exercise the break clause, which is exercisable from next month, and renegotiate new contracts on the hotels? Because you're not going to get out of hotels anytime soon. The numbers in hotels went up last year. And here it's going down now, but you're not going to get out of them anytime soon. Why not exercise the break clause, negotiate a contract that actually works for the taxpayer?
Well, look, obviously I want to make sure that we're getting value for money, not just from the contracts, but from the overall picture on accommodation. I've inherited a position where we've obviously been wasting money on hotels. I do obviously want to bring that down and want to get out of hotels as quickly as possible. That is a manifesto commitment. I'm not setting myself against the possibility of using the break clause. I think it's right that I've asked somebody to independently look at the contracts and how they're performing. But as I said earlier, the question is also the alternative. The two things go hand in hand. There aren't huge numbers of providers in this area. We have a large number of people that we need to accommodate. We obviously do want to get out of hotels. We are going to have to transition to a new system.
Money's being wasted.
That will take some time.
We have been asking the Home Office for months now why they don't exercise the break clause. It's exercisable from next month and nothing has happened. People keep telling us, yes, we'll think about it. Why not? Why not? Has it not already happened? Why is it not happening now? Actively thinking, right, we will exercise the break clause as soon as possible, renegotiate new contracts, because these providers are laughing all the way to the bank at the moment and the Home Office is being supine. It's not good enough.
Well, I mean, we should never have been in the position where we were in these contracts in the first place, and we shouldn't have been in hotels either. Those have been policy choices that have been made previously. The difficult factor in what you're saying is more about, as I say, the alternatives and how you transition to a better model for...
It's not the hotels. You've got to renegotiate the contracts.
Well, look, I think we're just going to have a
hotels.
point of disagreement between us. But as I say, I have asked for an independent review into those contracts. It will report to me with findings. We don't need a break clause to get out of hotels, which I know is the thing that has caused the outcry about people profiteering here. We don't need a break clause to get out of hotels, and we will be getting out of some hotels this year. And as I say, we have a manifesto commitment to get out of hotels.
Why do you need a report? When we wrote a report last year, why not read our report? It's plain and simple there. We've explained the issue.
I mean,
you have the facility, the break clause, and there's simply reluctance to exercise it. I do not understand.
I think asking somebody with commercial experience to look at the actual contracts themselves and to be able to advise me on that is the right thing to do.
Okay. Robbie Moore.
Home Secretary, I just want to push you on the figures because the savings that the Home Office had on asylum accommodation was 0.9 billion in one financial year, 24 to 25. But it's anticipated to be 1.1 billion over a 3-year period. That seems not ambitious enough, given the savings that have already been made. So you say you're on track, but why are we not being more ambitious in terms of the cost savings? And it follows on from the same points already been made about utilisation of the break clause.
Yeah, look, I mean, I will want to make sure that we are getting value for money and making as many savings as possible. So I wouldn't say that the 1.1 billion is, once we've done that, that's it, we can all go home, we're not worrying about savings anymore. I will want to go further if we can. We have a particular number that we do need to meet. I'm confident we will do so. If we can go further, of course we will.
And on the movement to larger scale sites, we as a committee went to Wethersfield and we had a look around the site, etc. And one of the big issues, particularly for me, was the way in which the interview process was taking place off-site and only had been moved very slowly to being taking place on-site. So can we have your reassurance that we're not going to end up in a bizarre scenario when we are looking at larger scale sites where the interview process is going to be taking place off-site with transport costs being paid for transporting those individuals to another part of the country to then take part in a remote interview? We've got to get to grips not just with the costs associated with accommodation, but actually the interview process and the actual application process costs as well.
You're absolutely right, and obviously where I want the sites to be is that as much as you can do physically on site is done there, and that there will be as this part of the estate grows and as we get out of hotels and into more large sites, I think there'll be a sort of rationalisation of what we're able to do. There have been a lot of lessons that have been learnt even since Wethersfield about how we should organise ourselves and how we actually deliver services on site, which I'm sure we will be able to do more, and I will absolutely look at the specific point on interviews that you've raised.
Well, we definitely found that it was much better to have people not travelling many, many miles to go and...
Generally speaking, that is, we would want to avoid that.
Absolutely. Moving on to Border Security and Returns, Ben Maguire.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Home Secretary, for coming in today. If we could move on to the small boat crossings, and this has clearly been the shop front of a system that's been on its knees for many years, and it dominates a lot of the public discourse and the media coverage. We saw year to end 41,307 people crossing the Channel from France on small boats. That's a 13% increase from last year. We have, meanwhile, an asylum backlog of around 80,000 awaiting a first decision, then almost as many, 70+ thousand on the appeals system as well. Can we sort of get some answers, Home Secretary, on when you expect these numbers to come down? Because lots of my constituents, I'm sure your constituents, all of our constituents, deeply concerned about this, but we see these increases year on year. Lots of kind of sound bites from the government that we're doing this. We've negotiated something with China to reduce the dinghies. Nothing seems to be working. Can you give us an update on how you're going to fix this?
Yes, look, those numbers are obviously not where I want to be either. This is an issue of deep concern in my own constituency and my city as well. So I fully hear what you and your constituents are saying, and it's exactly where I am as well. These are unacceptable and the numbers need to come down. What I would say is... This is a fiendishly difficult problem to resolve, and it does require a sort of full spectrum response. If there was a silver bullet here, I promise you I would have triggered it already. There isn't, so you do have to, I'm afraid, do the much more, long-term, careful, painful work of trying to resolve every bit of this problem. It's why dealing with boat engines and getting that agreement with China is important. The Germans have passed a law on warehouse storage of boats, because we know that's a problem. Getting another government to prioritise a piece of legislation they don't need for themselves but which would help us a lot is a big thing. That in itself takes time, even where there's goodwill, as we have had from our German counterparts, but other people's legislative systems do take time. The measures we've taken already with a law enforcement approach, I think, have stopped something like 22,000 crossings. So I appreciate the numbers aren't good for where we are, and I want them to come down much more quickly, but without the action we're taking, they would be even higher. And I think that all of that disruption activity, all of those seizures of equipment, all of the cooperation with counterparts, particularly in the north of France, but in other parts of Europe as well, I think all of that helps to manage down the numbers, but obviously we've got to go further and make much more progress. And I've had lots of discussions with my French counterparts about more progress that we can make. It is all part of the solution. What I would say on the other side of the equation, with the measures that I announced in restoring order and control on the asylum system, that is also designed to deal with the pull factors that we know are attracting people to go and pay their money to a people smuggler and get on a boat and cross the channel and come into this country as well. So we've got to deal with the pull factors. We've got to go harder on law enforcement measures on the coast in the north of France, and then also we've got to get removals even higher than where they are today in order to deal with every part of this problem.
So with all of that in the round, can you confidently say that this time next year, when you come before the committee next January, that those won't be record numbers? We won't be seeing such a large
January, by
increase.
The way.
but obviously another year will have gone by. Will you be confident in numbers going down by then, in all the different measures that you've just talked
Look,
about?
I would love to be in that position. I can't guarantee I'm going to be in that position. That's because the measures will take some time to come into effect. We will legislate at the earliest opportunity to change the appeal system, to further restrict the way that Article 8 of the Human Rights Act is interpreted. There's a whole range of legislative changes that we've announced, which we are working at pace to draft and get right before we pass them in a bill. That all necessarily does take some time. All of these measures, they're not overnight solutions, they're not silver bullets, but this is a key area of delivery for us, and I'm determined to make progress.
I appreciate that, but given all of those measures and looking 12 months down the line, are you confident that the rise won't be as high as it is this year at 13% at least? If you aren't confident the numbers aren't going to go down, are you confident that the rise won't be as steep as this year?
I'm confident that we'll have made progress on changing the law and clamping down on some of the ways in which the asylum system as currently constructed frustrates removal of people from the country and can deal with things like appeals more quickly. So I'm confident we'll have made some progress. But look, I fully expect this committee and others to hold me to account on what the numbers actually are, and I'm sure I'll be in front of you speaking to whether they've gone up or down long before January next year.
You will. Paul Kohler.
Are you saying you're not confident the numbers will go down?
I'm confident that the measures that we've announced will have an impact and start to bring numbers down. I can't give you a timeline of exactly when all of that will happen, partly because we do have to pass legislation. That all necessarily takes time, and we're obviously dealing with counterparts in other countries, and when they've passed legislation, that has taken time. So there's just some necessary changes that we're making that cannot be done overnight. Do I believe that the full range of policy and legal responses that I've developed to deal with some of these problems will have an impact on numbers? Yes, I do.
Last October, I asked the Border Security Commander and a DG at the National Crime Agency whether he could give any example of how Brexit had helped us defend our borders.
How what, sorry?
How Brexit had helped us defend our borders. This, after all, is a post-Brexit problem. They were unable to give me any examples. Can you?
Are you saying it's a post-Brexit problem because of the returns possibilities under
the Dublin Accord?
Well, what I would say is, I would just dispute whether Dublin actually worked as was intended. I mean, the EU have now themselves created a new pact because their own arrangements were not working as intended. So I would think it's a bit of a stretch to. I'm sure there's lots of other debate to be had about the rights and wrongs of Brexit, but is Brexit responsible for the boats? I don't think that's true. And on returns, I think that it can't be the case that was working if the EU itself has changed its posture on its own internal arrangements.
Why was this not a problem before Brexit?
Well, I think, look, we used to have people coming across on vans and so on.
Fewer.
Yes. If they're able to disappear though without being detected, you wouldn't actually know the full number. Is the reality. So I don't think you're comparing like for like there. This is a new phenomenon of people willing to risk their lives to get across a body of water in a dinghy. You've had organised crime move into this area because they've spotted an opportunity and because these individuals will pay a lot of money to get on a boat. So I think it is a new phenomenon. The idea that this has happened because we've lost the access to Dublin and the returns agreement with the EU, I think that's too much of a stretch.
Okay.